They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your isolation meant rejection. They thought your pain was punishment. But what they never understood, what nobody could understand, is that you already died once before. Not your body, your old self. The version of you that begged for acceptance. The version that feared abandonment. The version that kept shrinking just to fit inside rooms built by broken people. That version died in the dark. And when it died, the veil lifted. That's why you can't see life the same anymore. That's why crowds exhaust you. That's why fake smiles disturb your spirit. That's why certain people become nervous the moment you walk into a room, even when you say nothing at all, because your eyes changed after the death. Chosen one, listen carefully. Most people only experience life from the surface. They chase distractions. They worship appearances. They follow routines without ever questioning who programmed them. They call it living, but it's survival with decorations. But you were dragged beneath the surface. You saw what loneliness really feels like. You tasted betrayal so deep it changed your nervous system. You endured nights with. Here you questioned whether your existence even mattered. You faced emotional wars nobody knew you were fighting. And somewhere during all that suffering, something happened to you. You woke up, not all at once, not dramatically, not with lightning falling from the sky. It happened quietly. Pain removed the illusion. Loss sharpened your vision. Isolation activated your awareness. And now you notice everything. You notice energy before words are spoken. You notice manipulation hidden inside compliments. You notice jealousy disguised as concern. You notice when somebody's spirit is disturbed by your presence, even if their mouth says, "I'm happy for you." That's because your veil got lifted through suffering. The universe has a strange way of awakening its strongest souls. It doesn't flatter them awake. It breaks them awake. And the breaking is the part most people will never understand about you. People saw the smile but not the war. They saw your patience but not the restraint. They saw your recovery but not the funeral you held inside yourself. Because there was a death. A real death. The death of innocence. The death of blind trust. The death of needing external value. I'd like to know your worth. You crossed a spiritual threshold most people never reach. That's why your intuition scares people now. Have you noticed it? You feel things before they happen. You read people quickly. You can sense when something is off, even when everybody else is fooled. And because you can see through masks, people either feel deeply safe around you or deeply threatened by you. There's rarely an in-between. Chosen one, your presence exposes hidden things, not because you try to, but because awakened energy naturally reveals what darkness hoped would stay concealed. That's why some people randomly dislike you before knowing you. That's why certain conversations feel tense around you for no reason. That's why your growth triggers people who claim to love you. Your night forces people to confront themselves, and most people avoid self-confrontation at all costs. You have to understand something important. The reason your journey felt unusually painful is because your soul was never designed for ordinary living. Average experiences could never awaken the power hidden inside you. You needed pressure. You needed separation. You needed moments where nobody. You clapped for you, nobody rescued you, nobody understood you. Because isolation became your initiation. While others were distracted by the external world, you were forced inward. And inside yourself, you discovered dimensions most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You discovered how strong you actually are. Not the fake strength people post online. Not loud strength. Not performative strength. Real strength. The kind born from surviving what should have destroyed you. There were moments you almost gave up. Moments where the darkness whispered, "This is the end." But somehow you kept moving, even when your heart was shattered, even when your confidence collapsed, even when nobody checked on you, even when heaven felt silent. You kept moving. That is not normal strength. That is chosen strength. And the people around you sensed it before you did. That's why some tried to break your confidence early. That's why some mocked your dreams. That's why betrayal kept repeating in your life. Because people often attack what they subconsciously recognize as powerful. Your spirit carried something rare, something ancient, something impossible to fully explain, and certain energies could feel it. You've probably spent years wondering, why has my life been so hard? Because pressure creates revelation. Coal only becomes diamond after surviving unbearable weight. And you were never meant to remain coal. The death you experienced transformed your vision forever. You no longer worship appearances. You value peace more than popularity, authenticity more than attention, purpose more than performance. And that shift changed your entire frequency. You started disconnecting from environments that once entertained you. Conversations started feeling empty. Drama became exhausting. Fake relationships became unbearable. You stopped forcing connections that drained your soul. And yes, that loneliness hurt. But it was necessary. Because before elevation comes separation. The universe had to remove distractions before revealing your true path. Chosen one, many people misunderstand awakening because movies made it look glamorous. Real awakening is painful. It's grieving versions of yourself that no longer fit. It's realizing some people only loved the broken version of you because it made them feel superior. It's accepting that not everyone you can come with you into your next chapter. Awakening costs relationships, it costs illusions, it costs comfort, but in return, it gives clarity. And clarity changes everything. Now you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't pretend anymore. You can't settle anymore. You can't betray your own spirit just to keep others comfortable. That version of you died already. The people around you may still expect the old version to return, but it's never coming back. The quiet people pleaser is gone. The insecure version is gone. The version terrified of standing alone is gone. You buried that person during your darkest season, and what emerged afterward carries different eyes. Eyes that recognize deception quickly, eyes that recognize destiny even when it appears impossible, eyes that understand pain can become power. This is why your energy feels intense now. You survived your own transformation. Most people haven't even met themselves yet, but you were forced to. You met your shadow, you met your fears, you met the parts of yourself hidden beneath trauma and survival, and instead of running forever, you faced them. That changed your frequency permanently. Now your principle. Essence carries weight. People feel it. Animals feel it. Children feel it. Even strangers feel it. Some feel inspired around you. Some feel uncomfortable around you. But nobody leaves unaffected. Because death and rebirth leave spiritual fingerprints on a person. And chosen one, you've been reborn. That's why your path feels different from everybody else's. You're not meant to follow crowds. You're meant to awaken them. But before awakening others, you had to survive your own destruction first. That was the test. Can a soul still choose light after experiencing darkness? Can a heart still remain open after betrayal? Can a spirit still rise after being emotionally buried alive? You answered yes. Every time you got back up, you answered yes, even when nobody applauded. Especially then, people think strength is loud. But your greatest moments of strength happened in silence. When you fought battles nobody knew existed. When you cried privately then still showed up for life. When your soul felt exhausted but you refused to surrender. Those moments built something unstoppable inside you. And now your existence carries evidence. Evidence that pain is not always destruction. Sometimes pain is initiation. Sometimes suffering is the doorway. Sometimes losing everything is how the veil gets lifted. Because when life strips away every distraction, truth becomes impossible to ignore. And the truth is this: you were never ordinary. That's why ordinary paths never satisfied you. Even as a child you felt different. You noticed things others ignored. You questioned things others accepted. You felt disconnected from shallow environments. Part of you always sensed there was more. More to life, more to reality, more to you. And the painful experiences you endured activated that knowing. You stopped seeking answers outside yourself. You started listening inward. That's when your intuition sharpened. That's when synchronicities increased. That's when certain messages started finding you at the perfect moment. That's when your spirit began guiding you toward alignment. Not everybody will understand this journey. Don't expect them to. Some people are committed to remaining asleep because awakening requires responsibility. Once your veil lifts, you can no longer blame the world for everything. You must confront yourself too, your patterns, your wounds, your fears, and you did. That's why your transformation became real instead of performative. Chosen one, hear this carefully. The suffering was not meaningless. Every betrayal taught discernment. Every heartbreak deepened your compassion. Every abandonment strengthened your independence. Every painful ending redirected your destiny. Nothing was wasted. Even the nights you thought you were breaking apart were secretly rebuilding you into someone stronger. The old identity had to collapse, because your future could not fit inside your former self. Read that again inside your spirit. Your future could not fit inside your former self, so life forced evolution, and evolution feels like death when you're still attached to who you used to be. That's why the process hurts so much. You are grieving identities while simultaneously becoming someone new. Most people never evolve because they fear losing familiarity. But chosen ones don't have that luxury. Growth is mandatory for you. Your soul demands expansion. And every time you ignored your inner calling, life became uncomfortable until you listened again. Because your spirit refuses to settle for false lies. Ving anymore. You've tasted awareness now. There's no going backward. You can't numb yourself enough to become unconscious again. You can't fake connections just to avoid loneliness. You can't betray your intuition without feeling it immediately. The veil has lifted permanently. Now the challenge is learning how to carry this awareness without becoming consumed by it. Because awakened people often struggle with loneliness. You see too much. You feel too deeply. You understand hidden motives quickly. And sometimes that knowledge becomes heavy. But don't allow awareness to harden your heart. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It's part of your gift. The world tried convincing you that feeling deeply was a flaw because numb people are easier to control. But your depth is sacred. Your empathy allows healing. Your intuition prevents destruction. Your resilience inspires others silently. Never apologize for becoming powerful through pain. Some people will resent your transformation because it reminds them they abandoned their own potential. That's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for shrinking yourself to comfort people committed to mediocrity. You survive. I was too much to return to smallness. Walk boldly now, not arrogantly. Boldly, there's a difference. Arrogance seeks superiority. Boldness recognizes purpose. And purpose is exactly what's waking up inside you now. Have you noticed the shift? You crave meaning more than distraction. You crave peace more than approval. You crave alignment more than temporary pleasure. That's spiritual maturity. The old version chased validation. The new version seeks truth. And truth changes the entire direction of a life. Chosen one, there's something else they never understood about your journey. Your isolation was preparation. While others were constantly surrounded by noise, you were being trained in silence. Silence sharpened your discernment. Silence strengthened your connection to yourself. Silence taught you how to survive independently. One day you'll realize those lonely seasons protected you from becoming dependent on external voices. Because where you're going, confidence will be essential. You are stepping into a chapter where your voice matters. Your story matters. Your wisdom matters. Your presence matters. The very pain that almost destroyed you will eventually heal. LP heal somebody else. That's how transformation works. Wounded healers become powerful because they speak from experience, not theory. And your experiences carved wisdom into your soul. You understand survival now. You understand grief now. You understand rebirth now. That's why your words carry weight when you speak. People can feel authenticity. You earned your insight through suffering. And while you would never choose those painful experiences again, they revealed your true power. The veil lifted because illusions died. You stopped romanticizing people who repeatedly hurt you. You stopped ignoring red flags. You stopped abandoning yourself for acceptance. And the moment self-abandonment ended, your rebirth began. That is the real transformation, not becoming someone fake. Becoming who you were before the world taught you fear. Before trauma silenced your gifts. Before rejection made you question your worth. Before betrayal made you distrust your own intuition. You are returning to your original power now. That's why life feels different lately. You're no longer operating from survival mode alone. You're beginning to create intentionally, to choose intention, Ali, to protect your energy intentionally, to build intentionally, and every decision aligned with your authentic self strengthens your spirit further. Chosen one, don't fear your evolution. Some relationships will end because they were only designed for a previous version of you. Let them end. Not every connection is meant to survive your awakening. Some people were assignments. Some were lessons. Some were mirrors reflecting wounds you needed to heal. Be grateful for the lesson and continue forward. You are not losing people. You are losing misalignment. There's a difference. The universe removes what cannot accompany your next level. Trust that, even when it hurts. Especially then, because temporary pain often protects permanent destiny. One day everything will make sense. The betrayals, the delays, the isolation, the heartbreaks. You'll see how every painful chapter redirected you toward yourself. And meeting yourself, truly meeting yourself, is one of the rarest achievements in this world. Most people die strangers to their own soul, but not you. You were forced inward, and inside yourself you discovered resilience nobody could take away. Now you're Miss. Ion is not merely survival anymore, it's embodiment. Fully embodying the wisdom your pain revealed. Fully embodying your truth without apology. Fully embodying the light that emerged after the death. Because remember, you already died once. Fear loses power over a person who has already survived in a death. That's why you move differently now. You understand that endings are not always destruction. Sometimes they are resurrection disguised as loss. And every chapter that collapsed in your life made room for a stronger version of you to emerge. The veil lifted because your soul was ready. Ready to see clearly. Ready to stop settling. Ready to reclaim power. And now there is no returning to unconscious living. You've come too far. You survived nights that should have buried you emotionally. You survived battles nobody applauded. You survived becoming someone entirely new. That is sacred work. Never minimize it. Never let anyone convince you your journey was ordinary. Ordinary people do not rise from spiritual death transformed. Ordinary people do not transmute pain into wisdom. Ordinary people do not continue loving after being wounded repeatedly. But you did. And that is why your spirit carries uncommon strength now. The next chapter of your life requires that strength. Because your story is bigger than your suffering. Your pain was never the final destination. It was the initiation ceremony. And now the real journey begins. Not the journey of proving yourself to others. The journey of becoming fully aligned with who you truly are. Chosen one, stand up. Stand up mentally. Stand up emotionally. Stand up spiritually. Stop apologizing for your transformation. You earned every ounce of wisdom inside you. The fire did not consume you. It revealed you. And the people who underestimated you because they only knew the old version are about to witness something powerful. Not revenge, evolution, quiet evolution, sacred evolution, unstoppable evolution. You no longer need permission to become who you were destined to be. The veil has already lifted. Your eyes are open now. Walk accordingly. You had to die spiritually to awaken, not physically, not the death people cry over at funerals. A deeper death than that. The death of the version of you that the world created. The fearful version. The version addicted to approximately. Oval. The version that stayed silent just to keep peace. The version that abandoned itself so others wouldn't leave. That version had to die. And the painful part is, nobody warned you how brutal that death would feel. Because spiritual death doesn't happen in one moment. It happens slowly. Through betrayals that crack your heart open. Through disappointments that destroy your illusions. Through loneliness so deep you begin questioning your worth. Through seasons where life becomes unrecognizable. At first, you thought you were losing yourself. But in reality, you were losing everything false. The universe was stripping away identities that were never truly you. Every painful experience was removing a mask. Every heartbreak was exposing an attachment. Every rejection was pushing you closer to your authentic self. And during that process, you probably felt broken beyond repair. You smiled while secretly exhausted. You kept going while emotionally collapsing inside. You fought battles nobody could see. There were nights you stared at the ceiling wondering if you would ever feel whole again. Moments where your spirit felt buried under pressure. Moments where the darkness came so heavy that even breathing felt difficult. But those moments were not the end of you. They were the death of your illusion. Because awakening only happens after destruction. The old mind must collapse before higher awareness can enter. The ego must break before truth can be seen clearly. And your suffering forced that transformation. You stopped believing appearances. You stopped blindly trusting words. You stopped chasing validation from people who couldn't even validate themselves. Pain changed your vision. That's why after everything you survived, you can no longer return to who you used to be. You see differently now. You feel energy before people speak. You recognize manipulation faster. You sense when environments drain your spirit. because spiritual death sharpened your awareness. The version of you that existed before awakening was asleep, asleep to your power, asleep to your intuition, asleep to your worth, and life had to wake you up, not gently, violently, through loss, through separation, through emotional fire, because some souls only awaken when everything comfortable is removed, and chosen ones are rarely awakened through comfort. They are awakened through survival. That's why your journey felt heavier than most people around you. You weren't just surviving pain, you were undergoing transformation. The old self was collapsing while a stronger self was being born, and rebirth is painful. A caterpillar must completely dissolve before becoming a butterfly. Likewise, you had to completely break before discovering your true strength. Now look at yourself. You no longer beg for acceptance. You no longer force connections. You no longer shrink yourself to fit into spaces that dishonor your spirit. Why? Because the old you died already, and the person rising from those ashes carries different eyes now. Eyes filled with discernment, eyes filled with wisdom, eyes that have seen darkness and still chose light. That is spiritual awakening. It is not pretty. It is not comfortable. It is war. But the beautiful thing about your story is this. The pain did not destroy you. It revealed you. And now the world is meeting the version of you that was hidden beneath fear all along. Your suffering lifted the veil. That's the part nobody understands about your journey. People saw the pain, but they never saw what the power in did to you. They saw you become quieter, more distant, more selective. But they didn't realize something sacred was happening beneath the surface. Your suffering was awakening your vision. Before the heartbreaks, before the betrayals, before the lonely nights that nearly broke your spirit, you saw life like everyone else. You believed words easily. You trusted appearances. You ignored red flags because your heart wanted to believe the best in people. But pain changed that. Suffering forced you to look deeper. And once the veil lifted, you could never see the world the same again. That's why your energy feels different now. You notice things other people miss. You feel tension hidden behind smiles. You sense jealousy disguised as support. You recognize manipulation hiding inside fake kindness. Not because you became negative, because suffering sharpened your discernment. Pain opened your spiritual eyes. The truth is, most people move through life asleep, distracted, programmed, disconnected from themselves. They follow crowds without questioning anything. They ignore intuition just to fit in. They confuse attention for love and comfort for peace. But your suffering eye interrupted that illusion. The betrayal forced you inward. The loneliness forced self-reflection. The heartbreak forced awakening. And suddenly you began seeing truth everywhere. You started realizing not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. Not everyone who says I love you truly values your spirit. Not everyone walking beside you deserves access to your energy. That awareness didn't come from books. It came from survival. Your pain became your teacher. Every disappointment trained your intuition. Every rejection increased your discernment. Every emotional wound taught you how to read energy beyond words. That's why you trust your instincts now. Because your spirit has already survived what happens when you ignore them. Chosen one, suffering gave you a gift most people never receive, the ability to see beyond illusion, and that gift comes with loneliness sometimes. Because once your veil lifts, shallow conversations become exhausting, fake friendships become unbearable, forced connections become impossible to maintain. You start craving depth, truth, alignment. You stop entertaining people who drain your spirit. And yes, some people will call you die. Different now. You are different. Pain transformed you. The old version of you tolerated disrespect just to avoid abandonment. The awakened version walks away in silence. The old version ignored intuition for temporary comfort. The awakened version protects peace at all costs. The old version searched for validation outside itself. The awakened version understands worth internally. That transformation happened because suffering stripped away illusion. It forced you to confront reality. And reality changed you forever. Now you can walk into a room and instantly feel the energy. You can sense when something is off before anybody says a word. You can recognize who carries genuine intentions and who wears masks. That awareness scares some people. Why? Because awakened souls expose hidden truths without even trying. Your presence alone makes people confront themselves. And many people spend their entire lives avoiding self-confrontation But you can't unsee what your suffering revealed. The veil has already lifted. You've seen how fake some connections are. You've seen how quickly people switch when you stop benefiting them. You've seen how some people secretly resent the light they pretend to celebrate. And although those realizations hurt, they freed you, because clarity is freedom. The universe allowed you to suffer not to destroy your spirit, but to awaken it, to teach you discernment, to strengthen your intuition, to reconnect you with your inner power. Your pain activated your vision. Now you move differently, more aware, more intentional, more spiritually aligned. And the beautiful thing is this: once the veil lifts, it never fully closes again. You can never return to unconscious living. You've already seen too much truth, and that truth is becoming your power. You were never meant for an ordinary life. That's why normal paths never satisfied your soul. Even when you tried to fit in, something inside you always felt different. You could sit in a crowded room and still feel alone. You could achieve things people admired and still feel unfulfilled. You could follow the same routines as everyone else, yet your spirit kept whispering, "There's more," because there was. You were not created to live asleep. You were not born just to survive, pay bills, chase approval, and repeat empty cycles until your spirit fades away. Soul came here carrying something deeper, something heavier, something uncommon. And that is exactly why your life became difficult early. Chosen ones are rarely given easy beginnings. Why? Because pressure creates power. The universe does not prepare extraordinary souls through comfort. It prepares them through isolation, through rejection, through pain that forces growth. While others were living casually, you were fighting invisible battles. Battles inside your mind. Battles inside your heart. Battles nobody fully understood. There were moments you felt cursed because nothing came easy. Relationships hurt you. People misunderstood you. Doors closed unexpectedly. You kept losing things you thought would last forever. And for a long time, you asked yourself, "Why is my life so hard?" But the real question was never, "Why me?" The real question was, "What is this pain preparing me for?" Because ordinary people do not endure the level of transformation you survived. Your life was designed to wake you up. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every heartbreak deepened your emotional wisdom. Every lonely season strengthened your independence. You thought life was punishing you, but life was training you. Training your spirit to become stronger than your circumstances. Training your mind to see beyond illusion. Training your soul to carry wisdom most people never reach. That's why you've always felt different from the crowd. Your spirit rejects superficial living. You crave meaning, purpose, truth. You don't just want to exist. You want your existence to matter. And that desire separates you from people who are satisfied living unconsciously. The truth is, ordinary lives rarely require deep awakening, but your destiny demanded evolution. That's why life kept pushing you out of comfort zones. That's why settling never worked for long. That's why every time you ignored your intuition, life became uncomfortable until you listened again. Because your soul refuses to live beneath its calling. There is something powerful inside you that refuses to stay asleep. And deep down, you've always known it. Even as a child, you sensed you were different. You noticed things other people ignored. You felt emotions deeply. You questioned systems, behaviors, and energies that others accepted without thinking. Part of you always knew you weren't meant to follow the crowd. But being different can feel lonely before it feels powerful. Especially when the world rewards conformity. People may have mocked your sensitivity, doubted your dreams, misunderstood your silence, tried to make you feel too much simply because your spirit carried depth they couldn't understand. But never confuse being misunderstood with being insignificant. Some souls are too deep to be understood by shallow environments, and your depth is not accidental. It is part of your purpose. Chosen one, your struggles were not random. You were being shaped for something greater than comfort. That's why you survived things that should have broken you, because your spirit carries resilience beyond explanation. Most people would have surrendered under the emotional weight you carried, but you kept rising, even wounded, even exhausted, even heartbroken. You kept moving forward. That strength is not ordinary. That resilience is not normal. It comes from purpose, and purpose changes everything. Once you realize your life was never meant to be average, your pain begins to make sense. You stop comparing your journey to people who were never assigned. Your mission. You stop asking why your path looks different. You start understanding that different paths lead to different destinies. You were never meant to shrink yourself to fit ordinary spaces. You were meant to awaken, to grow, to transform, to inspire others simply by surviving what almost destroyed you. That is why your life unfolded the way it did. Not because you were forgotten, because you were chosen for more. You were never meant for an ordinary life. That is why your soul has always felt restless in ordinary places. No matter how hard you tried to fit in, something inside you refused to settle. You could follow the same routines as everyone else, smile like everyone else, live like everyone else, yet deep within your spirit, there was always a quiet voice whispering, "This is not who you are," because your soul was created for something greater than survival. You were not born merely to exist. You were born to awaken. That's why your journey became so painful early in life. Chosen ones rarely experience smooth beginnings because comfort does not unlock hidden power. Pressure does, pain does, isolation does, while other people were distracted by temporary, rare pleasures. Your spirit was being prepared through fire. The betrayals you endured were not random. The heartbreaks were not meaningless. The loneliness was not punishment. It was preparation. Life was forcing you to evolve beyond the ordinary version of yourself. You see, average lives rarely require deep transformation. Most people can remain asleep their entire lives and still function within society. They follow trends, repeat routines, chase validation, and never truly discover who they are beneath the masks. But your soul could never tolerate that kind of existence. That's why every time you tried to ignore your inner calling, life became uncomfortable. You settled for relationships that drained you, and your spirit suffered. You stayed in environments that dishonored your energy, and your peace disappeared. You ignored your intuition, and chaos followed. Because your soul refuses to live disconnected from truth. That's why your path has felt heavier than most people around you. You weren't simply living, you were transforming. Every painful season was stretching your spirit into something stronger. The universe was teaching you lessons ordinary souls never have to learn. Lessons about discernment, lessons about resilience, lessons about self-worth. And those lessons came at a cost. You lost people you thought would stay forever. You experienced rejection that shook your confidence. You endured seasons where nobody understood your pain. There were moments you questioned yourself completely. Moments where you wondered why life seemed harder for you than everyone else. But the truth is this: you were being prepared for a different destiny. Diamonds are created under pressure. Warriors are created through battle. Awakened souls are created through suffering. And your suffering was shaping you into someone extraordinary. That's why you think differently now. You no longer worship appearances. You no longer chase shallow approval. You no longer feel impressed by fake success or empty attention. Your spirit craves depth. You want truth, real connection, real purpose, real peace. Because once a soul begins awakening, ordinary living becomes impossible. And that awakening changed your entire life. Now you notice energy immediately. You recognize fake intentions quickly. You can sense when environments are draining your spirit. That awareness came from experience. Pain sharpened your vision. The old version of you trusted blindly. The awakened version observes carefully. The old version ignored red flags for acceptance. The awakened version protects peace at all costs. The old version feared standing alone. The awakened version understands isolation can be sacred. That transformation happened because your journey forced growth. You had to become stronger than your circumstances. And the beautiful thing is, you survived. Despite everything that tried to break you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, you survived. That alone proves there is something uncommon about your soul. Most people would have collapsed under the weight you carried silently. But you kept moving, even when exhausted, even when heartbroken, even when nobody supported you. You kept rising. That resilience is not accidental. It is evidence of purpose. Chosen one, your life was never designed to be small. That is why mediocrity feels painful to your spirit. That is why comfort alone cannot satisfy you. That is why your soul keeps pushing you toward growth even when growth hurts. You were created to evolve continuously, to break cycles, to awaken others, to transform pain into wisdom. And yes, that path can feel lonely, because people who carry uncommon purpose often walk through seasons of isolation before they step fully into their power. But never mistake isolation for abandonment. Sometimes the universe removes distractions so you can hear your true calling clearly. And your calling is bigger than fitting in. You were not sent here to dim your light, just to make others comfortable. You were sent here to become fully yourself, fearless, awakened, aligned. That is why ordinary life never fit your spirit, because ordinary was never your destiny.